everyone, and welcome back to the Fearless and Fabulous podcast. This is the space to inspire women to thrive no matter their age or size. I am your host and creator, Melanie Robinson. I'm also the reigning Miss Voluptuous International. And today I have a wonderful special guest all the way from the Netherlands. This is Kimberly. She is the host of her own podcast, Plus Size Pageant Talks, and she is a title holder herself. She is Miss Unity Netherlands. Is that correct?
I'm a finalist of Miss Unity Netherlands.
Ah, fabulous. Well,
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself a bit, Kimberly, and tell us, what you're all about and what brings you to my podcast today.
Well, thank you at first for having me. My name is Kimberly. I'm 23 years old from the Netherlands. I do have my own podcast called Plus Size Pageant Talk, where I do interview different women every week who inspire me on a lot of bases. Next to that, I'm an advocate for binge eating disorder. My titles are currently still first runner-up for Miss Diversity Netherlands and now a finalist of the Miss Unity Netherlands. So I'm
Oh, that's
very excited.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you and I could connect because you reached out to me and I was a guest on your podcast, and I love what you're doing. Just raising more awareness of body positivity and body images and binge disordered eating. And I myself am recovered from an eating disorder. And so we can talk about all those different areas. And when I put this episode up, it's going to be close to Thanksgiving time in the United States. And I know for a number of people with eating disorders, that can be a very triggering time. So tell us about, why did you choose binge disordered eating?
Well, last January, I got diagnosed with binge eating disorder, and that voice in my head that told me I wasn't good enough, I should be more slim, I should be more about the number on the scale, finally had a name. So since last April, I am in recovery currently still. And I've noticed that a lot of people around me didn't know what binge eating disorder was because it isn't an eating disorder, but you can see directly because I'm not just bones or I'm not vomiting or whatever.
Mhm.
Uh, and with Miss Diversity Netherlands, I first came out with my binge eating disorder when I was very unknown about it. And now that I'm a lot more known, I've experienced it a lot more now. I'm more familiar with it. I want to come out. I want people to know what it is to have an eating disorder as a plus size woman and how it started for me because it does have a big impact on my life. And eating is something that you do on daily basis.
Mhm.
So it's something that you're working with on daily basis. And people don't stand still with that. They don't understand that. And there are a lot more women and men like me who probably have binge eating disorder but can't give it a name yet.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're putting a spotlight on this because it's something that doesn't just affect women, it also affects men. It can affect children as well. And I don't have binge eating disorder. That's not what I dealt with. Mine was more of a form of anorexia that I went through years ago. And I think what a big uh, misunderstanding about eating disorders are is that you don't have to be a particular age or even a particular size to be suffering from one. I was a US size 3, which is very small when I was going through it. And I got so many compliments for, how great I looked, but I was miserable inside and I was not eating healthy at all. So what have you learned about binge eating disorder that surprised you?
I've learned that it came from far along. I always thought that how I was eating was my fault and that it was something that I had to do about. But I think that society, it's more something that society puts on you. So I've learned that I control my emotions with food. My yeah, my happiness kind of depends on food, to say it like that, and that it impacts you in so many more ways than you think, so much more than just my weight.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, I know at least from my experience, a lot of our relationship with food stems from childhood. Food can be so full of emotions with it, and our relationships with people can also be surrounded with our relationship with food. So I know for me, when I was growing up, if I didn't eat everything that my grandmother put out for us at family time, it was seen as disrespect. So you get this feeling of, well, if I don't eat everything, then my grandmother's going to think that I don't love her, I don't appreciate her. And that can be a really difficult thing to overcome. Have you ever dealt with something like that where you felt like your food intake was related to relationships around you?
Yes, there are indeed many moments where I had to finish my plate. I had to eat because otherwise it was disrespectful. Um, so yeah, they kind of make you eat, and especially at my grandmother's, I love her with
Hmm.
my heart, and she always loved to give me nice things. So food was connected with me with love. That's how I've learned it that way. So if my grandmother gave me something, it was because she loves me and not because um, she hated me or something. But afterwards, it was always like, yeah, Kimberly is eating too much. Kimberly is always on
Hmm.
the chips or on the chocolate. So that was kind of harsh because she always offered it to me. I was very little, so I was like, oh yeah, chocolate. And after that, oh yeah, she's kind of eating very much. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was very hurtful because I always got a little bit scolded afterwards with my parents. Um, Also love them both. They are amazing. And I think because society puts a label on people who are a little bit heavier from child's on,
Yeah.
my parents had to work with that. And I've noted since yeah, we have I think a different school system, but when I was about 6, 7 years old, we always had to go to a school doctor to weigh and see what our length was gonna be. And
Mm.
always when I got weighed, I was always overweight. So I've learned from then already on that I have to go to dietist. I have to be on a diet.
Oh,
I was
wow.
the biggest one in my class. I've got bullied because I was a bigger person. So my weight never felt normal. And
Mm.
society made me feel that way because even from school out, you had to lose weight. So it was never just Kimberly. No, it was Kimberly is overweight.
Mm.
And I think that is where it really started for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar here in the States. Um, we didn't re at least when I was growing up. I don't know if this is different now, but we weren't, weighed in school or measured in school. But there was definitely a labeling of kids who were bigger or just different in general. And I can understand that would put some strange pressure on parents. Like, I'm sure, like a lot of parents, they don't want their kids to go through the unwanted attention and the bullying. And they might mean well when they would say, well, don't eat so much, and you won't get picked on. But if you're also dealing with relatives that they're showing love through food and you don't eat the food, but you're going to get picked on if you eat too much food. That's a really hard
Yeah.
thing to overcome. And so I want to ask you this, Kimberly, especially since you're in the pageant world. So how do you able to handle that feeling of the pressures with food and the labeling and still be able to step out as the best version of yourself? What have you had to overcome to be able to do that?
Well, I think it took a lot of me because it's of course since this year I've been just diagnosed actually. So um, first I didn't really know, and diversity was the first patient that I know from. Okay, I have an eating disorder. So I didn't eat during breaks. I didn't eat where my patient sisters were, not because I didn't feel safe with them,
Mm,
but I've learned that in big groups, a group thinks of me that I'm fat and fat people can't eat. So I was scared to eat, and I've noticed now that because I've come out with it and I talk about it a lot, and also on my social media, people understand me. And yes, eating with the girls is sometimes still a challenge for me, but I can tell it. I can
yeah.
say like, okay, give me a break, give me a second. Otherwise, I'm eating alone in the corner, or you know, just don't pay attention to me. So I think instead of being scared of what people think, I see it as a challenge for myself. Like, people don't care if you eat a sandwich, people don't
Mm,
care if you just take your lunch. And I think that is something that you have to relearn when you're recovering from an eating disorder, that people don't mind if you eat. They don't have constantly an opinion about you.
yeah.
And that pageant world is really giving me that back, that I can be my beautiful self, and I'm not just my eating disorder. And I think that that's what makes it beautiful. And the pageant world gives me back my beauty for myself. I finally feel like I can be myself. I'm not a size 6, no. And my size 20, 22 is also very beautiful.
Yes. I
And
love to hear that. That just warms my heart to hear that. And thank you for being so open and vulnerable about what you go through, because it really is our truth that really can not only just set ourselves free, but helps to set other people free who are in a similar situation. And I can guarantee, Kimberly, and I'm sure you're well aware of this too, is that our smaller pageant sisters, there's a number of them who have eating disorders themselves that are constantly in their heads about, am I small enough? And it's probably weird for them to eat in front of us as well.
yeah,
So I always feel like somebody's always going through something. We don't always see what it is, but just being able to be kind and empathetic towards one another and just appreciate the person who they are, I think is the most important thing we can do, and just try to be supportive of one another. And I, I'm really hoping that not just in the pageant industry, but just media as a whole, that we can just look at each other with wider eyes and understand that we're more than just our shells.
yeah.
Exactly, right? So tell us a bit about what got you interested to start your own podcast.
Since Miss Diversity, I've learned there are so many pageant girls with their own story. And diversity was my first pageant where you had to have a statement and have to talk about something that was important to you. And then I heard so many beautiful stories. Then online, I've heard a lot of pageant girls talk about what they were going through or what their statement was for. And I saw the love that they had for what they do. That
Hmm.
so intrigued by, okay, I want to know more. I want to hear more about your story. I want to give the diverse people a platform too, because we're not all Miss Universe material. And
Which
I
we
want to
should be, honestly. We should all be Miss Universe material.
definitely agree with that. No, and I was so intrigued that I had the idea, like, I want to have my own podcast. I want to interview those women. I want to hear the stories. So, kind of out of the blue, I've decided on the name Plus Size Pageant Talk, only based on being plus size myself. And I want to just talk pageant. I want to give them like a platform where they can express themselves and tell their stories, because I think that's very important. And it's a sisterhood thing. We have to help each other, otherwise, who else is gonna do it?
Absolutely. Being able to lift each other up and to create a bigger community, I think it just empowers women as a whole. And I have a mantra that I go by. It's if you can't see her, you can't be her. And the more that we show up and we tell our stories and we share our truths, then we can see, more women like us in spaces that we're not normally seen in. So like an instance, Miss Universe. So, like I am hopeful that maybe someday we will see a more plus size woman in that title. I don't know when it will be, but if we keep showing up, I have to believe that that will happen at some
Yeah,
point.
definitely agree. I hope it does because it's they're giving up sometimes a body image that isn't possible for everybody, and it isn't
Mhm.
everybody's dream body.
Yes, and it's not just, Miss Universe, it's, female leadership. I don't know if it's like this in the Netherlands, but I know here in the US, women who are, female politicians, especially, they are usually criticized first for their looks versus what they stand for. And you don't really hear the same kind of criticism from men in politics. And that's something that frustrates me is that I wish we can just get beyond, what is she wearing and what has she done with her hair versus let's pay attention to her voice and what she stands for, and then let's judge her from there. Is it similar over the Netherlands?
Um, I'm not seeing it like that big of a deal. I do have to say I'm not paying a lot of attention to what politics wear or what they. I'm more interested in what they do for our country.
Yeah.
And I think always groups will always come, even in our country. In every country, everybody will be based off their looks. But I do have to say that it's not a very big deal. We have some politic leaders, female politic leaders who aren't as skinny, or as every day in a suit. So yeah, I'm very happy to see that that our leaders are just like us people.
Mm,
I think that really motivates us to believe in what the system has come for us.
that's wonderful. I do hope that we get more of that type of ideology over here. But the US is it's such a huge country and with so many different types of people and it's a little trickier, I think, for women to be seen as strong leaders for all different types of people. We're getting there, but we still have some work to do.
Yeah.
Uh, Shifting back a little bit to body image. So, what would you say if you had the chance, if you got to be in charge of Instagram, for example, what would you do to try to make Instagram and social media networks more friendly to girls and women who may be dealing with low self-esteem? Do you have any ideas what you could do if you had that ability?
Um, if I had the ability, I would say show it them all. Don't let only and be inspired by the very skinny woman. Let us inspire because I think that is the same thing that you maybe had as a little girl. I didn't have a plus size woman to look up to.
Yeah.
Times definitely change. So show them all the diversity that's in the world. Just show them what they have done with their name and with themselves, not just with how pretty they are. And make the algorithm more based on the people what they need to hear and not about what they sometimes want to see.
Yeah, I mean, if we could just send your words to the people in charge of those platforms, that would be amazing. But,
Thank
even
you.
though we don't have that power, what can we do as women to make our social media experiences more positive for us? What do you do to keep yourself mentally healthy?
What I especially like to do on my own social media is just showing me, and I'm not just showing every perfect detail of my life about my amazing vacation, about the good pageant dress I wore. No, I also write the stories behind it. That means that I write down that I have off days. I'm still dealing with my eating disorder. So that is not just one line going up, oh, look how amazing I'm doing. No,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of days that I'm down to. And I want to make social media more of a reality, not just an expectation.
Mm.
You start there with yourself and your own post, people will follow because people will be inspired by that. And you can see that not everybody's life is just perfectly going fine because nobody's life is.
You're right. Yeah. I call it there's Instagram life and then there's real life.
Yeah,
And I think unfortunately a lot of people start thinking that what they see on Instagram, well, that's their life. It's always wonderful and beautiful and amazing. And I think if we were more willing to be more vulnerable online and maybe show some of the things that are behind the scenes, as well as our successes. But I think that would put such less of a pressure, especially on women and girls, to be this, quote unquote, perfect person. I know for myself, when I'm scrolling online, I'm very careful about who I follow, the types of hashtags that I follow, because it being online can really be very negative. It can really make you start feeling some very negative feelings, some very triggering feelings. And I know that when I'm following people, I like to see that whole person, not just, their vacations, like you're saying, and whatnot, but just being real. And that's something I like to relate to. And I think much more people could relate to that as well. Um, so since we're both pageant queens, do you think we need to see many more pageant women just being more authentic online, maybe pull back some of the glamour, show a little bit more
yeah,
behind the scenes? How do you feel about that?
yes. I want people to be authentically them. I love to see a real person there, someone I can relate to, and I can't relate to someone who always has perfect hair, perfect makeup, and the most amazing clothes. I can relate to someone who is just themselves, who has a
Hmm.
story to tell. And as passion women, we should, because we have something called pretty privilege, and we have to use it.
Mm.
We have to use it in the good way.
Can you say that
Yeah.
again? Pretty privilege.
Pretty privilege. Everybody
I
privilege.
Oh, that's the mic drop right there. That's the mic drop. How do you explain what pretty privilege is? What's your definition of it?
I think what us pageant women really makes us pretty, of course, a lot of us have the looks. Um, like everybody has, but a lot of people don't want to see it by themselves. And I think what really makes us pretty is the story that we can tell with what we want to do,
Hmm.
are not just a beautiful picture. No, we
Yeah.
are more, we are a story. And
Yeah.
I think what pretty privilege really means for me, that you can be yourself and show them what you got.
Yeah. It's so much more than just your face card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. I One of the things that frustrates me about when I see some pageant queens is I see their Instagram is just full of selfie after selfie after selfie after selfie. And maybe there's like some nice quote with it. But I want to know, like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? What type of actions are you taking? What are you doing with your pretty privilege to make life for those around you better, to make your community better? And that's one of my frustrations, and I think maybe sometimes that can um, keep other women from wanting to enter pageants because when they see that type of example, they can't relate to that. Uh, is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, definitely. Because I entered my first pageant in 2022. And I wasn't aware that people, the plus size people like me, were able to do pageants because pageantry was for me the Miss Universe with the
Right.
perfect round legs, amazing hair, the makeup, everything. And I didn't feel like that girl. So pageantry didn't really feel as an option for me. And in 2022, I entered my first pageant, Miss Curve, Netherlands, together with Ashley Anna. Um, and that's the moment where I realized pageantry is so much more than having those nice, beautifully long legs and amazing hair and makeup and
Mm.
everything about the person behind it. And wow, I directly fell in love. My first year was really like, what am I doing here? Um, you have to figure out what pageantry was. And I think that my first year of pageantry is till now on still one of my favorites because the friendships that I've made there are really friendships.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Ashley Anna. She's my sister queen as well. She's Miss Voluptuous International now. And I totally agree that the connections that you can make through pageantry can be just magical. That you, when you find a community of women that are like-minded, who want to make a change in the world, who are using their pretty privilege in a responsible way, uh, it's it's something I think had that been made available to me when I was younger, wow, I think, maybe I wouldn't have gone through the eating disorder that I did because I felt like I had to measure up to an impossible
Yeah.
standard. And I think that's something that, more plus size, in my case, an older woman, women from all different types of backgrounds, they need to be able to stand up, speak out, show who they are, and you just be proud of who they are because other girls need to see them so much.
Yes, definitely agree with that.
And I want to, goodness, time flies so fast, Kimberly. Whenever I do these podcasts, I'm just like, my goodness, we're
Yeah.
almost out of time. So, one of the
Oh,
things that I always like to ask my guests is, what is something that, what is a fear that you have faced, you've come through, and what is something that makes you feel fabulous? So, what's a fear that you feel you have come through first? Let's start there.
Um, I think one of the biggest fears I used to have was being seen, being in
Mm,
right because as a plus size child, a plus size woman, something I've always done is step out. I didn't want to be in the attention circle, and I think that was a big fear of me. Yeah, that was a big fear, and I've done it. And if I can see where I'm standing right now, I'm going with a lot of love on stage. I finally speak my mind.
mm.
Because I speak, I'm finally defeating my eating disorder. That makes me fabulous. That makes me authentically me
I
and
love
being
that.
real. Yeah.
So, what is something that you do for yourself that makes you feel fabulous?
Accepting myself for who I am right now.
Mm,
And that is maybe really a cliche thing to say, but it's something I haven't been doing for years because I was always in the opinion that I wasn't good enough as a plus size woman, that I wasn't more than my weight. And I finally realized that I'm so much more than that. I am Kimberly. I am a woman who talks about her problems. I'm standing there on stage representing the plus size community. The one who gives other people with my own podcast a stage because she has the truly good intentions. And being at that point in my life right now is something that makes me really proud.
I'm just sitting here. My heart is full. It is warm. I'm loving it. You are a beautiful force. You are a beautiful spirit. You're just an amazing person. And I'm just sorry that our time is winding down. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining. I will, of course, include your socials so they can follow Plus Size Pageant Talks. And I really hope you all will follow her. This is a queen, Everybody, she is a queen through and through, and she doesn't even need the sash and the crown to prove it. She's just that. She's that girl. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you, Melanie, for having me. It was truly amazing talking with you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us at the Fearless and Fabulous podcast. Please stay here. I've got so many more amazing women to profile. We'll see you soon.